Good morning, YouTube. It's 4:30 in the morning. Ketogenic Bodybuilding. I'm Rob Goodwin, and thanks for being here. It's a special edition of Morning Muscle, so glad to have you on board. Special edition because A, it's the first episode, and B, it's competition edition. We're out on the road here in Charlotte, North Carolina for a bodybuilding competition that myself, my daughter, and my training partner and trainer Ryan Gant are doing here. And it all comes down to today after about 11 months of training and dieting. And I just rolled out of bed, kind of get you up to speed on what's happened up to this point. Obviously, this morning being Saturday morning and competition day, it's the end of peak week. And that's what we call the week before competition now. Back in my day, we used to call it Hell Week because we deplete everything and, you turned into this freaking walking zombie and it kind of sucked. But now we call it peak week, and it's still very difficult because you are damn depleted, but some adjustments we've made have made it a little bit easier. It used to be back in the day, you'd cut all your water in the last couple of days. You'd cut sodium. We don't do that anymore. At least I don't. A lot of smart people don't. There's really no need to do that. So the only real adjustments that you make during peak week, as far as I'm concerned, is with carbohydrate. And if you've done the work and you've followed strict dietary compliance throughout the prep, which I've done throughout pretty much 12 weeks now, then there really shouldn't have to be much adjustments made here at the very end. The only changes really started happening a little bit on Thursday and big time yesterday. And then, of course, today will pretty much be business as usual, continued from yesterday, leading up to stage time. Yesterday was a pretty cool day because we got to bring in some carbs, a pretty big whack of carbs. So yesterday to me was the bigger carb load day. So I started the day with some cream of rice and some egg whites. That was at about 5 a.m. And then pretty much every 3 hours, something very similar to that. So with my protein source, whether it was with egg whites, and with my egg whites I do a couple egg whites and 2 whole eggs to get those yolks in there, to get that good fat in there. So about every 3 hours I'd have either eggs and egg whites with cream of rice, and then I switched to some white fish after that throughout the day, and I would throw in a couple of rice cakes with some natural peanut butter on top of that, and just slowly start trickling carbs into my muscles throughout the day. Yesterday being the day before the comp, always hectic. So we arrived here in Charlotte. I live about an hour and 20 minutes from Charlotte. So we arrived in Charlotte and got to the venue, did the weigh-in. I weighed in at 210. So confirmed heavyweight class in the men's open bodybuilding division. I'll also be competing in the 40 plus masters heavyweight division, and I'll be competing in the masters 50 plus division. The 50 plus doesn't have a weight category. It's just all weights. So, but I'll be classified as heavyweight for the open and the 40 plus, and then just in the 50 plus masters, hoping to pull out a class win in one of those. So that would be awesome. So hopefully I've brought the right package that the judges want to see, and that'll all work out for me. So we'll see, but we're going to bring you guys along so you'll know. This morning, well, actually yesterday, continuing yesterday, the day before the competition, once we got here to this Airbnb, which is a really nice house, big. I got my whole family here, my wife, still snoozing upstairs. God bless her. She's been amazing throughout all this. She's extremely supportive, there for me through all the chaos and helping me with keeping it all together and the food and the itinerary. And, she's fantastic. And all this while she's also helping my my daughter, who's doing her first competition today in the novice women's bikini division. So it's her first show, so it's very exciting for everyone here. My 13-year-old daughter is also here, still snoozing upstairs, and so everybody's still kind of out while I'm down here, talking to you great people, so over some coffee. So yesterday evening got a little bit more exciting because my last big meal Friday before the show, we went with Outback, and I had a 10-ounce filet and a sweet potato with some grilled asparagus. On the sweet potato, Outback's kind of got this awesome like honey butter stuff that I put a big whack of that on it, and some cinnamon, which was really good. Lots of the pink salt, and hammered that down, and that was outstanding. That was a nice change from what I'd been doing over the last couple of weeks. And then after that, my strategy that works well for me is I continue to kind of bring in what I call dry carbs. I kept snacking on rice cakes, both plain rice cakes and the caramel rice cakes, just a little bit of sugar in those. With some natural peanut butter smeared on top. And then I took just a cup, just like a solo cup, and put a cup of Cheerios in that, and just kind of tugged on that and ate some dried Cheerios, which was actually surprisingly satisfying. And then on top of that, I had a cup of Honey Bunches of Oats cereal with almonds. Put that in a cup and just had those dry carbs. And then I think I had one more rice cake and peanut butter, and maybe one or two more, and just kept pumping all those dry carbs into me with the fats. And I'd put like a little shake of pink salt even on top of that, because the fat and the carbs and the sodium work so well to really bring the fullness into the muscles, those depleted muscles. And when I do that later in the day, I typically always wake up looking pretty dry, pretty vascular, pretty peeled. And when I woke up this morning, I was pretty pleased. I mean, I'm probably the leanest I've been, and definitely leaner than I was last year. So hopefully that translates well on stage. And then I did my little secret weapon. We get the little mini bottles of vodka, and downed a couple of those with some black coffee, and that just kind of it has this way of drying you out in that subcutaneous layer. So I did notice waking up this morning looking a little drier, skin looking a little tighter, more like that saran wrap around muscle look. You can see some more striations and some vascularity. So that's the old legend Ronnie Coleman, Mr. Olympia Ronnie Coleman story. When he won his first Mr. Olympia, he had done that. So it does work. So that's the only little bit of hocus pocus and voodoo that I do. Everything else is just adding some carbs in the day or two before the competition to fill out the muscles. Peak week. The week before the competition, I'm going to touch on this really fast. We call it peak week now. Back in my day, we called it hell week because there was a lot more water restriction, sodium restriction, depletion going on, which just made you feel like hell. Don't do that anymore. I don't recommend that you do it if you want to compete or if you're trying to get ready for some kind of a photo shoot or special event. You know what? You continue the water just like you did. I took in about a gallon to a gallon and a half a day all the weeks leading up to this competition. And then the only adjustment was I cut that back to about 3/4 of a gallon yesterday. That's it. I cut sodium, none. I use a lot of sodium. I use a lot of pink salt on everything that I eat, a lot of seasoning. I didn't cut that back at all. And the thing is, sodium and water work so well within the muscle that if you deplete those, you're just asking for trouble. you're just going to look flat and stringy, and there's really not a big benefit to it. It really doesn't make sense to try to manipulate 2% of your body and screw up the other 98%. So I really don't think there's any justification to cutting water and sodium at all, except for that maybe that just pulling it back a little bit, which I did, but I was still very hydrated. I did have those dry carbs in the evening, and I didn't have a whole lot of fluid with that, just enough, just kept pulling on a water bottle. And but the point is if you've followed strict dietary compliance up to this point, you should come into peak week so lean, you don't have to change anything. It's business as usual. And that's truly what I believe, and that's what works best. So the only change I make on peak week is I start to bring in a little bit more carbohydrate on Thursday. Just what I call my IV drip of carbs through like rice cakes and cream of rice and sweet potato, little bits of sweet potato. And then Friday, I'll have a big whack of carbs. And most of that comes later at night, before I go to bed. That last, after that last big meal that I have with the sweet potato, I'll bring in that big whack of carbs, like I mentioned, in that last 30 minutes before I go to bed. And that usually translates really, really well for me and for my clients that adopt the same approach. So again, the moral of the story is peak week should not be, there shouldn't be any hocus pocus or voodoo with that. There's no tips, there's no magic bullets. It's just diet your ass off, train your ass off, come into that final week ready, and knowing that you did the work, and then the only thing you've got to do is, pull back the carbs and then bring them up that day or two before the competition. Now this morning, not much is going to change. It's very, very simple. Starting the day with some coffee. Here in a minute, I'm going to have a serving of cream of rice with a cup of egg whites with one whole egg. And then at that point, it's just every hour up until the pump up before stage, I'll have a rice cake and peanut butter. Maybe a little shake of pink salt on top of that, a few pulls on the water bottle, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Right before, prejudging starts at 10 a.m. The athletes meeting is like at 8:30. You have to be at the athletes mandatory meeting. Right before we pump up backstage, this will be for me about 9:30, 9:40, something like that. I will have 2 Reese's peanut butter cups, only because that fast absorbing glucose mixed with the fat in the peanut butter cup is going to pull into the muscle very rapidly. It's going to be great for, when I pump up those muscles backstage and heat everything up to really bring that last little bit of fullness within the muscle and really it helps them really get a good pump. So again, the only tricks or hocus pocus that I do throughout the entire peak week is, I guess you could say, the too many bottles of vodka and a couple of peanut butter cups, and that's it. Everything else is just carb loading, like most people do, and there's no other manipulations or tricks in there. So that's peak week. So if somebody tries to tell you that peak week is some kind of a magic formula that all the top coaches are withholding, there isn't. It's just stay the course, stick with what got you here, come in conditioned, and you won't have to worry about it. So anyway, I'm going to cut it off right now, but we're going to piece this in with a whole bunch of footage from the competition today and kind of bring you along with us and upload a bunch of the competition footage onto this channel. If you like what we're doing, please hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to really help us push this mission and further this cause. Hit the little notification bell that lets you know when I've uploaded new content, which is going to be frequent as this train keeps rolling down the tracks. Please share what we're doing on social media. That helps tremendously. Tell a friend. Share us with a friend, and I'd really appreciate your support. And I will continue to work hard to give you as much information as I can weekly here on this channel, absolutely free. There's more resources at kgbodybuilding.com. That's our official website. Join our Facebook group. All links are in the notes underneath here. Hey, it's competition day. It's time to kick ass. Hopefully the judges agree that the hard work we've put in translates well on stage to them. And maybe, if we're lucky, we can bring home some hardware for you. But again, thank you for your support. And we're going to continue on this morning with competition footage and kind of behind the scenes stuff. So I hope you enjoy it.